Hi everyone. My name is Joel. I'm 54. Uh, I live in southern New Jersey, and I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I actually work in Philadelphia, but due to COVID-19, I'm working from home now, and I am a government employee, so I'm not going to give out my last name. I talk to people from all over the country, and I don't want them contacting me through social media or finding out who I am just because of the nature of my job. A few things that I wanted to raise after talking about, or not talking about, after listening to many people and their walkaway story. I sort of have a walkaway story. However, it was more of an epiphany and not a walkaway story. My upbringing, again, as I said, I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I always enjoyed the history of the city. Class trips in elementary school to Independence Hall, the Liberty Bell. When I had visitors from outside the area come in, I take them to Old City in Philadelphia to show them the history. Even one year with my college alumni association, went to the University of South Carolina for undergraduate, and there is we get together, for football game viewing and stuff like that. But several years ago, there was a person who was a certified, or I guess certified, tour guide for Philadelphia for Old City, and he took us around to the different attractions. And the city has a lot to offer as far as American history. And even as a child, I always enjoyed that. My parents we didn't really discuss politics in the house. I'm sure my parents had opinions on their elected leaders at the time. As a child, I didn't care. It didn't make one difference to me as a child. Then, my parents separated, and I went to a different school in a different state. Bounced back and forth a couple times between parents. I ultimately graduated high school in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Part of the high school curriculum was you had to take Virginia and U.S. government. I hated that class. I nearly failed it and almost didn't graduate. Quite honestly, I believe I got a D in the class. I didn't like the teacher. And at the time, 17, 18 years old, politics just basically bored the daylights out of me. But in any case, one of the things I remember from the class was the teacher said, vote. No matter who it is, even if you don't know who you're voting for, you said vote. Something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing if I remember correctly. We're going back 40 years. I graduated high school in 1984. In any event, jump forward. I went to community college in New Jersey, and I had to take U.S. government as part of my curriculum there, and I took it in a summer class, so it was kind of really condensed. I really don't remember anything, but I did better in the class than my high school class. Forward a few more years, I got my undergraduate degree, came out of school, moved back up to the Northeast, to New Jersey, and I went to work in retail, and still really no interest in politics. I jumped around a couple jobs. By the early 2000s, I opened up my own business, and it failed. And I have no one to blame for that except for me. But in any event, because the business was suffering, I took another job delivering pizza for Domino's. And even after the business completely failed and I took all my inventory out of the store and closed up shop, I was still delivering pizza, pretty much on a full-time basis. And as a result of delivering the pizza, I was in my car a lot and I had the radio on constantly. Well, I got tired of listening to music, so I started listening to talk radio. And sure enough, what was on talk radio but conservative talk? And I just was kind of listening to the background as background noise. So it would kind of go in one ear and, out the other. I would catch bits here and there. But it was different than the music in that, the radio station I listened to would say that we only play, we don't play the same song twice in a day. Yeah, but they would play it once every 24 hours, and it kind of got on my nerves, so I started listening to talk radio because it was different every day. This was around the time of George Bush's last term in office, and it was around the time that Hillary Clinton was going up against Barack Obama prior to his first term. So she was running for president for the first time. And I remember clearly listening to part of a speech that she gave, and I think she gave it in Central Park, New York. I don't know if the speech was live or taped, but it was on the Sean Hannity show. You can blame him for me having my epiphany. And she was basically saying, talking about the illegal immigration problem, and she was saying, these are the people who, do our cleaning, and they do all these manual jobs, and I thought, what a condescending bitch. She is really a condescending bitch to say that. Because, yeah, we always see people from out of the country, recent immigrants, I don't know if they're illegal or not, doing these laborious jobs, but, I don't know if it's, why, but I mean, they could do so much more than that. They have the opportunity in this country to do a whole lot more than just manual labor. If manual labor paid enough, and if I was in better physical health than I am now, I would do manual labor. I'm not above doing manual labor. I would pick up dog dirt in the street if it paid enough. So that doesn't bother me. But I thought for her to mention that was just extremely condescending. However, in any event, I had always been registered a Democrat, and I always thought I was a liberal. But through listening, and again, what I was listening to on the talk radio at the times I was working was actually Sean Hannity's program. I don't agree with everything he does or says, or everything he says, I should say. But in any case, at the point I realized, as I listened more and more and looked at more and more things, and started a Facebook account. I wasn't one to immediately jump on Facebook when it started, but by 2008, I think I got on Facebook. But in any event, I started looking and reading posts that were more conducive to my personal belief. And I also look at the opposite side, and it was just mind-boggling how much hatred that was being spewed from the left. I think, as I started to say, I had always been a registered Democrat because I always figured, okay, Democrat and democracy. Even back when I was in high school, and I always voted Democratic. I never once voted for a Republican, and didn't know who I was voting for unless it was a president. I knew who it was, but I would go straight down the line and vote Democrat when I was doing my voting. John Kerry was the last Democratic president I voted for. I did not vote. By the time Barack Obama was running for his first term against Hillary Clinton is when I started to get more educated on public policies and things like that. That's when the information started to interest me. Prior to that, I just had zero interest in it. But one thing about me, as I was growing up, I was always proud to be an American. I was always proud to be a citizen of the United States. I have nothing to be ashamed of for being an American citizen. Growing up, my parents were probably, somewhere middle class to lower middle class, somewhere in that range. Which is, it's not a bad thing, it's just where we were in life. I always had food, I always had clothes, I had parents, had a house, and education. I learned to read and write, and you can't complain about that. And I had a fascination as a child with the military and thought that I wanted to go into the military and make that as a career. However, I never did. However, in 2011, I went to work for the U.S. government, and this is where I am now. I actually just had my 9-year anniversary on Saturday, the 1st of August. So I've been working for the government for 9 years, and the agency I work for, I get to help people. They may not like the help. They may not like hearing the truth, because sometimes I have to tell them things they don't want to hear. But for the most part, this is how I'm giving back. I work for the government to help people. I don't make a lot of money doing it. I'm never going to get rich doing it. There are parts of my job I don't like, but no job is perfect. But this is me giving back. I enjoy working for the government. I could probably now, with my education experience, go find another job. It pays a whole lot more, but I'm going to stay where I am. My purpose in life is not to be rich, but to be happy in what I'm doing. So there's more than just money involved. In any event, in seeing what's going on in the world, not in the world, but in the U.S., I'm very much angry over that. When I went to work for the government, the office is in Philadelphia, and it's about 4 blocks away from the University of Pennsylvania. So when I was a kid, I always wanted to go to school there. My father would take me to go see a doctor at the hospital there. He would see the same doctor, and we would park, near the campus and walk through the campus. And I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. I want to go to school here. My father said, well, you got to do really well in school, and then you can apply. You can go to school here. Needless to say, I didn't like public school. I knew the importance of graduating high school and getting a high school diploma. And anyway, I was a poor student. Not because I was stupid. I didn't apply myself. I simply did not apply myself. I just did enough work to get by. College was different because when I went to college, I made the decision to go to school. Quite frankly, my community college was easier than my high school. And when I was in community college, I just did enough to get by. Not until I went to a 4-year school did I buckle down, and I did like really well. And because I did really well as an undergraduate, when I applied to the University of Pennsylvania for a master's in liberal arts, and to get a degree from Penn, so I was satisfying a bucket list item, kind of. I wanted to attend University of Pennsylvania. Several people in my family have attended University of Pennsylvania, so I'm just following in their footsteps. So, master's in liberal arts, what are you going to do with that? Okay, I studied a lot of eclectic stuff. I studied religion. I had one anthropology class which was kind of, I like anthropology, but this particular class I kind of didn't learn anything. I learned a lot from the religion classes. I had some philosophy classes. I had philosophy of education, and it was also cross-referenced with the Graduate School of Education. So, but when I took it, it was PhIL or something like that for philosophy. It was called the Philosophy of Education. I had a class in the Graduate School of Education. I think that was called the Politics of Education. That was a good class too. But in any event, there wasn't a thesis to do. There was a capstone, which was similar to a thesis. And my capstone was based off an interaction I had on Facebook with somebody I went to high school with. And this wasn't a person that I was friends with in high school. And it was actually with somebody that I didn't care for as a person in high school. The majority of the people on my Facebook account, a good 60 or 70 of them, I went to high school with, whether I knew them or not in high school. I just went and friended people that, I went through my yearbook and started, asking for friends with people I went to high school with. So he was one of them. So when I would repost something political, he would kind of take the opposite view. And his view was, we should apologize to the world for all the bad things we've done. President Obama, if anyone remembers when President Obama went and met with the Saudis, the Crown Prince or the King of Saudi Arabia, I guess it was the King, I forget his name. He bowed down and kissed his hand or kissed his ring. What fucking world leader bows down to another world leader to kiss their hand? That pissed me off. And I'm like, why should somebody do that? And this guy, he should. Okay, because basically he disliked all the things that the United States stood for. The United States is not a perfect country. We never were. We never will be. But it offers so much that you can't get in any other country on the face of the planet. This is not going to be my only video. I created this channel to get things off my chest and to say things that, hopefully others will agree with. And if they don't agree with, that's fine too. I don't care. At 54, I just frankly don't care anymore what other people think. Like me, hate me, I don't care. But to me, this walk-away movement where people are walking away from the Democratic Party My story is an epiphany, not so much a walk away. In listening to radio, I found myself agreeing with these conservative talk show hosts, and I've listened to national and many of the local commentators. 12:10 a.m. You can look that up on the internet, and you could stream that. And I just found myself agreeing with the conservative side. I ultimately changed my voter registration to independent. I can't go Republican because some of the Republicans that we have in office today are just as bad as the Democrats. But I don't see this as a Republican versus Democrat issue. I see this as a left versus right. I see this as conservative and liberal. When I say liberal progressive, that's how I view it. And as an independent, I could vote for who I think is the best choice. Recently, that's been Republican. At one point, I thought I was looking into it escapes my mind right now. Libertarian Party. And I posted something on Facebook about Israel and the Palestinian occupation stuff, something to that effect. And I was siding with Israel. This guy that I previously mentioned from high school, whom I didn't like in high school, said, "You're a libertarian. Aren't you interested in property rights?" And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Property rights. Okay? In any event, what I got fed up with was him trying to pigeonhole me into a specific group. Okay? And this is what the left does to people. They pigeonhole people. Because you're in this group, you need to be this way. Because you're in that group, you need to be that way. And I don't want to be pigeonholed. This is where I agree with people who are free thinkers. And if you really want to get technical, yeah, I am a liberal. I'm a classical liberal. I believe in what the founding fathers believed, and they got their beliefs from the era of enlightenment. And maybe I'll do another video about touching on that topic. But these men were geniuses. I would say that these men were probably more genius than the people we have today. They came up with, again, not a perfect system of government, but they came up with a system of government that works for us, that provides us so much freedom. But you have to work for it. It's not the government's job to provide me an income. It's not the government's job to see that I have a roof over my head. It's not the government's job to see that I have health care. And it's not the government's job to force me to have something I don't want, such as health care, if I don't want it. These were things that the left, they want the government to do these things. I want the government to stay the fuck out of my life. Yes, I work for the government. I help people, but I do things within the law. If Congress passes a law for this, that, or the other thing and it applies to my job, I'm going to apply it, regardless of my opinion. But it just it got to the point where the left became so vicious. They became so toxic to deal with. Yeah, I've lost friends on Facebook because of posts that I made. I lost one friend specifically, I know, because of my opinions and beliefs. Um, I'm sure I lost others. They just dropped me, and I don't care. By all means, you don't like what I have to say, please drop me, okay? Um, I'm okay if you have a different opinion than me. I'm okay if you want to be a liberal. I don't hate liberals, but I have an extreme dislike for people who constantly want to put the country down. The flag is racist. This is racist. That's racist. That's bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. The flag is not racist. Statues aren't racist. I don't care if it's a statue of a Confederate general or not. The statue itself isn't racist. You know, if you're a minority, specifically a black person, and you have a statue of a Confederate general outside of a municipal building or a state capitol in the South, and you're walking in the front entrance of that building, don't you think that's a big FU to what we used to be compared to now? I don't like the left's erasure or wanting to erase our history. Um, we have good parts and bad parts, and we need to learn from it. But we're constantly evolving and growing, and we need to learn from the past mistakes. And slavery was a mistake. Um, Look, when the founding fathers wrote the Constitution, they knew slavery was on the way out. They did a lot of things in government to limit the inflow of slaves or totally cut it off. Okay, northern states got rid of slavery. Hell, New Jersey was the last northern state above the Mason-Dixon line to get rid of slavery. I don't know what year it was, but I do remember reading that. And when I'm talking about slavery, I don't know if there are black slaves or not in the North. Maybe. I don't know. I never looked into it. But the founding fathers knew that slavery was on the way out. But they needed the southern states to be on board to be successful at driving the British out and being able to rule ourselves. As a result, because the majority of the people in the South, they wanted to include the slave population. But if they did that, the slave population would give the southern states more of a voice in Congress. So they compromised. They said, okay, we can count the slaves as 3/5 of a person, and we can, you can have congressional members based on that. So doing that was not an act of being negative or racist against black people or wanting to keep slavery. It was from keeping the South from wanting to maintain slaves in Congress. So they compromised. And they said, okay, we'll count them as 3/5. So you can have more congressional representatives, but it also prevented the southern states from having the overwhelming majority of representatives. So the United States ultimately abolished slavery, and we know what happened there. Okay. Another thing about the left, and I know I'm rambling, but another thing about the left that really disturbs me is they're more concerned with diversity than anything else. We have to be diverse. We have to have, a rainbow of mixed people in our cities, in our towns, in our schools. This is bullshit too. I watched 3 or 4 of the walkaway town halls with Brandon's truck. The first one I watched was the Latino one in New York City. I watched the black one in, I think that was in LA. And then I also saw the one with the lesbian, gay, LGBT community in Chicago. So those 3 I watched. And all you have to do is watch those and you see a diversity of people in the audience. What is not diverse about our country as it is? We no longer hear this terminology anymore, and I want to bring it up and I want to bring it to your attention, but we used to be the great American melting pot. So when Nancy Pelosi stands up and says that the president wants to make the country white again, that's bullshit. The president doesn't care about someone's skin color. He just wants people who are going to contribute to our society in a positive way. Okay? And that means keeping out people who are trying to sneak in the country, because I can't go into another country and sneak in, okay, without committing some type of law violation. But somebody can come into this country and all of a sudden they're not illegal, they're undocumented. Again, that's bullshit. So we already have equality. What do black people want? They want equality. They wanted equality from the beginning. Yeah, I mean, it was a long time to get them 100% equality. But what do black people have now that I don't have? Free education in public schools. They have access to college. They have access to the grocery store that I go to. They have access to homes in my neighborhood. They have access to the same car, the same hobbies. They can shop where I go. Name someplace a black person or another minority can't go today that I can go to. What don't they have access to? What is not equal about that? And when I see other people, yeah, I physically see they're different from me, but I don't think them as different. It's another person. That's all I see is another person, another individual. Yeah, I could tell a black person from an Asian person, from a white person, just like I could tell a blonde from a brunette from a redhead, okay, when I'm looking at women. But when my family emigrated here, and this is something else I want to touch on, is I'm a 3rd generation born in this country. I knew one set of great-grandparents. All my other great-grandparents passed away prior to my mother's birth and my birth, or my birth, I should say. As a matter of fact, it's also possible that I could be more American Indian than that dingaling from Massachusetts who was running for president, Elizabeth Warren. It's rumored that my mother's mother, who was originally from Michigan, might have some Indian blood. I never went through any one of these tests that determine ethnicity, but someday I will, and then I'll discuss that. But I have to say I'm probably at least 50% Ashkenazi Jew. my father's parents and my father's grandparents on both sides came from Eastern Europe. They either came from Russia or Poland, and they were Jews. So when they came here, they emigrated in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I don't know the exact years. And why should I be responsible for paying restitution or reparations to black people when no one in my family ever owned slaves? As a matter of fact, being of Jewish heritage, my people were slaves 3,000 years ago in Egypt. So they were probably taken as slaves by the Roman Empire too, when Rome occupied Israel and they changed the name to Palestine. So where's my reparations? You never hear Jews standing up saying, oh, I want reparations. There were all of the mistreatment that we had. Okay? Well, I don't want reparations. I don't need reparations. Okay? No country on the face of this planet is 100% perfect. If Jews were going to get reparations, then they should get reparations from the Egyptians. They should get reparations from Italy for the Romans. They should get reparations from Cuba for that ship that the Nazis let leave and they were turned away during World War II. And they should get reparations from the United States because the United States wouldn't accept that ship. Okay, they should get reparations from Spain. They should get reparations from the Palestinians. They should get reparations from the Iranians. They should get reparations from the whole fucking world, okay? And especially from the Germans. So the Jews have been wronged by just about every group on the face of the planet, and you never hear Jewish people standing up saying, I want reparations for all these past wrongs. Okay? The black people in this country that are probably more American than me, just because if they are descendant of slaves, then the slaves were here before my family came here. So, and something else about my family. When they emigrated here, they worked. They found jobs. They assimilated. I never once heard a story about my father's father, and that was the set of great-grandparents that I knew, my great-grandfather on my father's side, having to deal with anti-Semitism. I never heard any stories about my father's mother's parents having to deal with anti-Semitism, but they both were successful. My father's grandparents on his father's side owned real estate. He became successful. He owned a lot of real estate, rented out apartments, did some other jobs. He invested well. Got lucky during the Depression. His banks didn't close. On my grandmother's side, they were tailors. They owned a dry cleaning or tailor service. I think it was in Woodstown, New Jersey. But they assimilated. They became American citizens. When my grandparents were operating this store in Woodstown, you know, it was either tailor shop or a dry cleaner, like I said, they would never speak their native language in front of customers. They always spoke English. Okay. So, you know, think about that. This was their way of trying to assimilate. But they didn't make excuses for setbacks. Okay. I don't even know what setbacks they had, if any, but they were all successful in their own right. So, I wanted to bring that up. Um, but in any event, I know I've rambled on enough. I didn't think it was going to take this long to get through this. I just have a tendency to talk. But being the great American melting pot is what we are. It's what we'll continue to be. The president is not trying to make us all white again. We are still a great country. We will continue to be a great country. Um, the problem is deeper in some respects, I think. We have people being indoctrinated into the left. This is maybe something else I'll touch on in another video, is our education system. Um, However, I just wanted to say that I basically had an epiphany, and I discovered I really didn't walk away from the left or being a Democrat. I discovered I never was, based on my values and my beliefs. And I think that we are a great country, and I am proud to be an American citizen. I am so happy that I had the opportunity to be born in the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where the Constitution was written, where our nation began. The history is absolutely fascinating. As a third generation American whose parents come from, whose family pretty much comes from Eastern Europe, and then my father's parents came from Germany. They unfortunately had passed away before my mother was born, so I really don't know much about them. However, it had the, it's just a facet of American history that has always appealed to me. That and World War II history has appealed to me ever since I was a child. The area of the Civil War never appealed to me because it wasn't an area where my family had directly participated, because we came here well after the fact. But everybody should be fascinated by the founding of the country that they live in. So maybe this is why the Revolutionary War appeals to me. And then, World War II appeals to me, just because how can people fall under this delusion from Hitler, and then, millions of people die. But that's beside the point. But in any event, I just wanted to put this out there and get things off my chest that I've wanted to talk about. And I guess it was just easier to talk about into a camera without being interrupted. So, if you would like to comment, please do. If you disagree with me, be my guest. If you agree with me, be my guest. Want to add something? I appreciate reading it. I don't know if this will be like an every day thing or every week thing with this channel, but as things come up, and I can use it to get things off my chest. So if you like it, great. If you want to subscribe, I'll post stuff in the future. I do have another channel, but I created this one because it's more adult themed, and also because it's totally different from my other channel. My other channel deals with a hobby that I have, and I don't want to get political in dealing with a hobby because everyone should enjoy that, so I created this channel. But tell me what you all think, and again, I apologize for rambling so long. You all have a good week.